Hello, my name is Jesper. Today I'm going to introduce you to the minigame Choose Your Army. Choose Your Army is a great way to learn how the different types of pieces move in chess, and not the least how to make use of them facing another constellation for your opponent. The first thing you do when you are going to play Choose Your Army is to put out the pawns and the kings like this. As you can see, this is the initial position for starting a game of chess. The white pawns is placed on the second row, the black pawns are placed on the seventh row, then we have the white king on e1 and the black king on e8. Now you should add on 9 or 10 points to this army. What do I mean with that? Well, in chess the different pieces are worth differently. Let's take a look. The king is invaluable. That means that, everything is about the king in chess. If you capture the opponent's king, you win. If your own gets captured, you lose. So it's not possible to put a value on the king. But the queen is worth 9 points. The rook 5 points, the bishop 3 points, the knight 3 points, and the pawn 1 point. And what you should do now is to choose so you get 9 or 10 points in total. So what different choices do you have of pieces behind the pawns and beside the king? Well, those are the ones. First of all, you can choose to have 2 rooks, that is 10 points together. Or 1 queen, 9 points, 2 bishops plus a knight, 9 points, or 2 knights plus a bishop. And this makes it very interesting, because depending on what army you choose, you have to think very differently. For example, what can happen is that white chooses to have a queen and black 2 rooks. What strategy to use for white and for black? And what about if white chooses 2 bishops and a knight and black is choosing to have a queen? Then maybe 2 rooks against 2 knights and a bishop. What is important is to understand what strength the different pieces have got. For example, in this position you can see that white has chosen to have the queen and the black has chosen to have 2 rooks. What is the real strength of a queen is shown in this position, because white can play queen to f5 check. But beside that, the queen also threatens to take the rook on c8 and the pawn on h5. The queen is very strong to give double threats. Then you have the rooks. The rooks need open lines to be active, to be good. In this position you can see that the 2 rooks has got open lines down to the 8th and the 7th rank. And if white got the chance to move down a rook like this to the 7th rank, threatening to take the c7 pawn, and if black, for example, plays queen to c8, then the other rook follows up, and now we have a double threat towards c7 and then d7, the king on f7. The rooks are so strong in this position. Finally, what about the 3 pieces? How to coordinate them? First of all, if you play with 2 bishops, like in this position, they need to have open diagonals, like, you see the bishop on d5, very strong, threatening on b7, f7. Then we have the bishop on c3, threatening down to h8, and also covering the pawn on a5. And also the knight is quite strong, because has found a very good place on e4, threatening on d6, f6, and also on g5 could be a possibility to go to later on. What about 2 knights and a bishop? In this position you can see how strong they can be. First of all, what you see is that the knights have found great outposts, great positions in the center or in a place where it threatens different things, at the same time. Both knights very strongly placed. Also, the bishop on b2 has got a great diagonal down to h8 towards g7 and h8. Black rook, well, there is an open d line, so that should be good for black, but it is not so easy to make use of it because you can see that all the different squares on the D-line is covered by a white piece. On the other hand, if it's white turn, white also has got a very good move in this position. It is to play bishop to a3. It's a check on the black king and what to do for black. Because if you put the rook on d6, you can just take it and you will win a pawn, win a point for white. Because the rook is, or 2 points for white, because a rook is worth 5, a bishop is worth 3, white will win 2 pawns, 2 points. And the problem is for black that if the king moves to f6, white has got the great move knight to h7, and now it's actually checkmate because the king cannot move anywhere without being taken. Checkmate. Okay, time to make a conclusion. When you play Choose Your Army, Choose Your Army is played with the pawns, the kings plus pieces to a value of 9 or 10 points. You can play with king capture, of course, or with checkmate. You choose what complexity you want. Choose Your Army gives an understanding of the different types of pieces in chess. The game is good both for the beginners and more advanced players because they can play on their level. And I think that this is the great thing with this game. It is that everyone will find this game amusing. I have played this with beginners, almost beginners, They are learning how the pieces move. But I've also played it with really strong players who love to find out how to compete with different types of armies. Bye!